Welcome to the ODDSBREAKER'S #1 place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 39 of 2021. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at The ODDSBREAKERS and follow us on social media / The ODDSBREAKERS. This episode is being brought to you by MyBookie.ag. For a 50% sign-up bonus, please visit MyBookie and use the promo code ODDSBREAKERS. Terms, conditions, and locations apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs and sponsor the website and the podcast, we'd love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $24.99 a month, you can get my premium plays before the line moves. If nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. My friends, the ODDSBREAKERS is rolling. We have Major League Baseball picks for you. We have NBA that's just been killing it, thanks to guys like Chris. And we have Patrick Gates giving us some NHL. Nick Hub, who is pretty much ruling the tops of all MLB bet trackers, is joined the ODDSBREAKERS, putting out picks for you as well. Please make sure you check that out. If you guys have any questions about any of our plays or any sports that we handicap, please feel free to tweet us at the ODDSBREAKERS. My friends, we have a great show for you today. Sig from wagertalk.com is back to talk about the Belmont Stakes. And probably a little Bob Baffert news as well, if you haven't heard already. Before we get into that, I'm going to talk a little bit about some college football. Just give you a quick play that I made. I mean, it's early, but it's nice to hit the lines early, right? Been doing a ton of research lately. It's what I do in the summer is research college and NFL football. Those sports are my specialties. And then later in the podcast, I'm going to talk a little UFC on ESPN Plus, Vegas 28. There's some pretty good matchups there. Augusto Sakai versus Jargino Rosenstruck. Loving that one. Ilir Latifi versus Tanner Boser and more. But before that, like I said, going to talk a little bit of college football. Just going to give you a quick play before we get Sig on. And it's a season win total. Starting with the Mountain West. We're looking at Air Force here. And Air Force, not that 2020 was a main year. I think they only had 6 games. We're looking at their season win total here, and it is at 6.5. All right. Now, the thing with Air Force, you got to look at what they return because they are like a triple option hybrid team. They do throw some passes. I think they threw like 50 passes last year. You know, if you divide that up, that's like 8 or 9 per game, a little bit more than a triple option team. But they are not returning that many players. And that's where it really keys in here. Okay? Because triple option teams really need the continuity. They need their seniors to be full-size, full-grown men, right, to place against some of these better talented teams. Now, not like the Mountain West is super talented, but San Diego State and Boise State, Nevada, you know, those teams usually have a pretty high level of talent. Wyoming, right? So those are the teams that they have to go against. But Air Force, out of the 127 teams that played last year, only ranks 115th in returning production, 54%, 59% on offense, and 49% on defense. It's pretty low. And they're lucky they returned their quarterback. But more importantly, their win total is sitting here at 6.5. It only takes 6 to be eligible for the bowls. That's usually a key number to look at. And then looking at their schedule is where you kind of can break it down. Quarterback Zeke Daniels is expected to start here, and their schedule's not that easy. It's not terrible, but it's not that easy. Their first game, they play Lafayette. That's a win, right? We'll give them that win. And then they play another triple option team in Navy. They have to travel all the way to Annapolis, Maryland to play Navy, and Navy returns more production than they do. Navy should be the better team this year. I'm going to count that as a loss. Then they play Utah State. I can't stand Gary Anderson. So I'm just going to give them a win. We're going to give them 2 wins here. All right. And maybe it should be a half win. I don't know. I don't think Gary Anderson's a good coach, so I can see them winning that. But then they have to play Florida Atlantic. That's usually a pretty good Conference USA team. They didn't have an offense last year, but they had a defense. And then they play at New Mexico. I'm going to give them 1.5 wins there. New Mexico's a bad team, but they have to go to New Mexico, right? So we're already at 3.5 wins through 5 games. And the next game is Wyoming. Wyoming's a better team. One of the tops in returning production in this Mountain West division. I don't think they beat Wyoming. I don't think they beat the Cowboys here. Wyoming ranks 29th in returning production in the nation, 79% on offense and 79% on defense. So that's a loss. Let's go to the next game. At Boise State. Seriously? Loss. Versus San Diego State. San Diego State's a dang good team. They do rank about the same in returning production. But I'm actually going to give them a half win for that. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but San Diego State is usually ranked higher than Air Force. But we'll give them 0.5 and we'll move that up to 4 wins. Let's look at the next games. At Colorado State. That should be a loss. Next game. At Nevada. That's a loss. All right, that's definitely a loss. Nevada was next to San Jose State. I thought the next best team. Boise State was right there in the Mountain West last year, of course. But Nevada should have never lost that game to San Jose State. And that was just such an awesome Mountain West ending for San Jose State. Just wanted to quick throw that out there. Enjoyed watching those games. And then when their players sat out for the bowl game, that kind of sucked. They lost to Miami, Ohio. They lost to Ball State. That's what it was, Ball State. But anyways, they're not going to win at Nevada. And then they have UNLV at the very end, and that's their 5th win. We have 6.5 to work with. I took the under 6.5, gave it out to premiums. It was at plus 110 where I saw it. That is now back to minus 110. So I can still give that out to you guys, and I still like it. Under 6.5 wins for Air Force, who is pretty much redoing everybody on their team except their quarterback.
How much you want to make a bet I can throw a football over the mountains?
All right, my friends. We're going to touch on college football a lot more as the summer progresses. But right now, it's all about the Belmont Stakes. So let's bring on Sig from wagertalk.com. And now I'm happy to introduce a long-time horse bettor and handicapper in the horse racing world. You heard and seen him many times on the Pony Pundits and on the Wager Talk podcast. I would love to welcome back Sig from wagertalk.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Sig Las Vegas. Sig, summer's here unofficially. I mean, I think the Memorial Weekend does that, right? And the Belmont just kind of snuck up a little bit. No Triple Crown going on. How are things going for you?
Well, Kiev, summer is definitely here. My car was showing 117 as the outside temperature yesterday. Of course, it was parked on the roof of a garage of a casino. I was sitting in the baking in the sun all day. So, but summer's definitely here, that Memorial Day, and we are on a normal Triple Crown schedule this year. After last year's, everything was revamped because of COVID. We had the Belmont Stakes running a mile and an eighth last year back in the summertime, and then followed by the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness. So it was kind of reverse Triple Crown, but back on schedule this year. No Triple Crown to contend with, but we do have one hell of a field for the Belmont.
Yeah, man, I keep forgetting that the Belmont was first last year. It's always escapes my brain. Very interesting.
We're all trying to forget 2020.
Yeah, that's a good thing. But you're right, it was a lot shorter. It was like the Preakness distance last year, and that was really interesting. But now we're back to our normal race here, which is very long. I think it's 12 furlongs, something like that, mile and a half.
Mile and a half, 12 furlongs, right?
And curious how the excitement's shaping up. I know we don't have a Triple Crown horse contending this year, but I'm excited. Any stories out there?
Well, there's, a number of stories going on in horse racing right now that I'm sure we can touch on. But as for the Belmont Stakes, I think this is one of the better fields that we've seen in this race in a number of years. I think there's 4 or 5 horses in here that are good, top contenders, and I think that the race is shaping up pretty well here. As for other news in horse racing, the Bob Baffert information came in this week, so that's been the talk of the horse racing Twitter and the horse racing world. The second test on Medina Spirit came back, the Kentucky Derby pseudo winner, as positive. So they are stripping that colt of the Kentucky Derby victory. Mandaloon, the runner-up, will end up being the pseudo Kentucky Derby winner. So he doesn't get to enjoy all the spoils of being the champion, wearing that coat of roses and so forth. But he will end up getting that big winner's check. And Churchill Downs has banned Bob Baffert and his associates from competing at any of their tracks that they own and operate for the next 2 years, which means he won't have any runners in the next 2 Kentucky Derbies. And he can't. Some trainers, when they get suspended, put horses under assistants or other associates' names and run them. But anybody associated with Baffert won't be able to run at any Churchill Downs run property. So that's definitely going to be Churchill Downs. It will be the fairgrounds and a number of other tracks that they own and operate.
So this is crazy, man. Bob Baffert being suspended from Churchill Downs. This was like his home, but we've suspected some stuff about Baffert, obviously. And when I say home, I know he's in California, but this is where he wins a lot of races, right? Obviously, right. Lots of Kentucky Derbies. But can you tell me what happened a little bit more about Medina Spirit here? Why did it take so long to suspend this horse? What's going on?
Well, what happened is after he won the Kentucky Derby, they drug test all the horses, and it came back with a compound called beta-methadone, which is a banned substance. And the problem is that when the story hit, the Baffert people jumped out, and Baffert himself jumped out, and they started making excuses for this. First, the excuse was that one of the grooms urinated in the barn on the hay, and he was using a cough medicine that contained and they said the horse ate some of the hay, and then they came back and said, well, wait a minute, no, we had used this topical cream on the horse, and it only had 3 ingredients in it. It was made by Mark IV. It's made for dogs, and they were using it on the horse following the Santa Anita Derby up into the Kentucky Derby. 3 ingredients, one of them was a banned substance. So, they knew they were using something with a banned substance in it. And fortunately, depends on how you look at it. Fortunately, they got caught this time. Bob's been, in the last a little over a year, files the 5th drug violation for his runners. So I think a lot of it's been sort of like the Barry Bonds type thing with baseball in the early 2000s is, yes, he was using something, because you don't look at Barry Bonds in 1986, 1987 and compare it to Barry Bonds in 2003, 2004. The guy was definitely on something. It just wasn't detectable. So, I think they have been, and he's not the only trainer. There's a number of trainers out there that we refer to as chemists or superfeed trainers that have horses that improve dramatically when they end up in their barn. There were a couple guys last year in Jason Service, and I'm trying to think of the other name right now off the top of my head, that were suspended and are under federal prosecution right now for doping horses. And it's something that we need to clean up. If for the bettors and for the horses in general, that have a fair playing field. Unfortunately, and I've been on my soapbox before on the Pony Pundits, I don't think I had done it on your show yet, but there's no central horse racing commission, and we need some type of commissioner and some type of overall regulation of this sport just to protect the bettors, protect the animals, protect everybody involved in horse racing. It's a great sport. It's fun to bet on. It's a great day at the track. But until we're all playing on a level playing field, there's going to be problems, and we're going to have to figure out something. The question really is going to be with Baffert is Will he be suspended in other jurisdictions? If a jockey gets a suspension from one track, it usually carries over to any other track he may want to race at. Baffert's going to be banned from all the Churchill facilities, but we don't know. Like New York has temporarily suspended him. If they'll make that a permanent suspension in line with Churchill, whether California will do anything, I mean, that's his home base, is California with Santa Anita and Del Mar, whether they're going to let him race. Monmouth already came out and said that Bob Baffert's horses are welcome there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with those. And really it's going to come down to horse owners and if they decide to use Bob Baffert as a trainer or look elsewhere based on his current history.
So Medina Spirit wasn't, obviously she ran the Preakness, or he ran the Preakness, right? Yep. And it was the second test here that got Baffert suspended, right?
Right. Well, they run the first test, and then they always take a second sample when there is a positive to send it out to get a second opinion on it. And when the second test came back this week, Baffert's crew, actually his lawyer, jumped out in front of it and made the announcement before Churchill even got to say anything that the second test came back positive. And then after that, Churchill came back with the ban they placed on horses coming from his barn at any of their facilities. So, a first test doesn't get anyone suspended. It just raises eyebrows. And then the second test is what confirms that substance was definitely in the horse when he raced that day.
Okay, so like an autopsy, it's like it takes weeks to figure it out for sure. But there's speculation from that test. Okay, and that's where I was confused because I thought there was a second test taken from the horse. But the second test, they said, look, this is definitely something that you denied and knew you weren't supposed to do. So Churchill Downs came in and gave him the 2-year suspension.
Right. Once the second test came back as positive, Churchill Downs went forward with the disqualification and the suspension.
Yeah, I am very curious to see if other tracks are going to follow suit with that. I don't know the rules on that. And I agree with you. There should be a governing body like an NCAA, obviously to basketball and to football, to college athletes, NFL for the football, obviously, to oversee some of this stuff and to have some rules that are applied to every single location, every single track, and every single trainer and every single owner, correct? I think that's going to make the sport a little bit more honest, and the repercussions can be felt throughout every single track in horse racing.
Right. The problem with that, though, is that all these tracks are individually owned or corporate owned, and they all have different jurisdictions, and it all comes down to greed in the long run, is they all want to make the most for their particular shareholders or their particular owners. And until they decide to put the greed aside and say, hey, let's do it for the sport, we're still going to have problems like this, and we're still going to have guys like Bob Baffert running at tracks that want to say they have Bob Baffert running and have Bob Baffert's horses running, versus someone saying, okay, we're not going to let Bob Baffert train or race any horses throughout North America in the next 2 years. That would make more sense, and that would definitely deter other trainers from trying to use banned substances on their athletes.
No kidding. So it's kind of like it like a little bit of a club feel instead of more of a regulation, right? That's
true. Very true.
That's interesting. Okay, well, we beat that one to death, but that's going to be interesting to see how long it takes Baffert to come back and recoup from this. It's been something that it's been on people's minds, and I'm curious what's going to happen next year for horse racing. Heck, might be something better. So we'll see what happens there. Let's get into the Belmont Stakes then, Sig, and can you tell us a little history about this race itself?
Well, the Belmont Stakes has been around. The inaugural edition was run back in 1867, and Belmont Park is one of the probably the most, I don't want to say the most famous track, but I mean almost every big name horse that you can think of has run races and won races at Belmont Park. So Belmont dates back, like I said, to 1867, and it's been part of the Triple Crown Trail here probably since, I think, about the 1930s, when we had the Kentucky Derby, Preakness, and Belmont as the three tests for 3-year-old colt, well, basically 3-year-old horses, but it's mainly colts. I mean, we had some fillies win these races, but the majority have been colts. No offense to the lady listeners out there. Mm-hmm. But they call Belmont the Test of the Champion because it's a 1.5 mile track. They do one full lap around the track. And it's got these big, wide, sweeping turns. So whereas some tracks, you'll see the jockey start winding up his horse in the beginning of the far turn. If you do that at Belmont, you're going to get in trouble because you're starting way too early. It's a really wide turn, and then you have a really long stretch to deal with as well. And then the surface at Belmont is different than a lot of tracks. They call it Big Sandy. There's a lot more sand. It's a little deeper surface. It takes a little more stamina for the horses. So it really comes down to what they call the test of the champion, which is the Belmont Stakes. And when a horse is going for the Triple Crown, having that be in the third leg, you really get to see if your horse is a champion and deserving of a Triple Crown when they win the Belmont, when they're running in the correct order.
Right. And you know what's funny about this race? Everyone looks at the Kentucky Derby like it's the biggest one. I think that happened because it's always been the earlier one, and people just love the Run for the Roses name. I always thought the Belmont was the best myself to test out the true horse, right? Isn't that fair to say?
Oh, that's very fair to say. I mean, we've seen some really great horses run through Belmont, and we've seen some really big upsets too as well. I mean, in the last few years, we've had Justify and American Pharaoh both win Triple Crowns, which we hadn't seen since, I believe, 1977. It had been a long time since we saw some Triple Crown winners come across there, but we've also seen some names that you don't expect to see. Tizelaw won this race last year at the shortened distance and being the first leg of last year's Triple Crown. But the year before that, Sir Winston won in an upset. A couple years before that, Creator won in an upset. So we see more upsets and more non-favorites win in this race than we do see favorites win in this race in recent history.
That's right. And the distance pretty much says it all. And it's interesting to look at the trainers in this race because you have Brad Cox in this race, very highly regarded trainer, and you have Todd Pletcher. And Todd Pletcher has 3 horses in this, I think, 8-horse field. Sig, is that right?
8-horse field, yep.
I mean, how do you get almost half the horses in a race like this? Has that ever happened in such a big race where one trainer has almost half the horses?
You know what, Kiev? I was actually surprised. He had 4 entries out of that pseudo 20. It ended up being 19 in the Kentucky Derby. So he had 1/5 of the entries before a horse scratched out. He had more than 1/5 after the scratch out of the Kentucky Derby. He has, almost half of this field in here. But the fact is, I mean, Belmont is his home track, and he trains a lot of his horses here. So, I mean, it is likely, and he's actually won this race 3 times previously. So he knows how to get a horse ready for Belmont, and he knows how to get a horse ready to go that mile and a half distance of Belmont. So definitely, I mean, if he's going to, I could see Bob Baffert dominating in Southern California, but Todd Pletcher, you're on his home turf in New York.
Oh, that's for sure, and that's why he's so good at it. How would you rate the strength of this field in general with these 8 horses?
Like I think I mentioned earlier, I think this is one of the tougher fields that we've seen for the Belmont Stakes in the last few years here. I think there's 4 or 5 horses in this field that definitely are win contenders in here. There are a few that I would toss out, and I'm sure we'll touch on that here at some point.
All right, I'm sure we will because I would like to get in a little deep with this field here since it's there's 8 horses. You can talk a little bit more about what to expect here, and starting right here with the favorite. Let's talk about essential quality here. And he was kind of the Triple Crown favorite before the Kentucky Derby, and obviously we saw what happened there. Is he a deserving favorite and priced properly at 2-1?
I think he is a deserving favorite in here. I mean, I think he's the best 3-year-old in training currently. Yes, there was some issues in the Kentucky Derby that caused him to miss out there. But if you guys remember, going into Kentucky Derby, he was undefeated. He was 5-0 going into there, and he was the post-time favorite at just under 3-1 on Derby Day. Breaking out of the gate from the 15-hole, he basically went straight to the left. Luis Saez had him, and he went to the left. They were going to the rail, but in the process of doing that, they ran right into the horse in the 14 gate, which was my Kentucky Derby pick in Rock Your World. And he actually bounced off of that pretty well and recovered, whereas Rock Your World did not. And we're going to talk about him as well in here. Too. He's in this field. But Saez had to use up a lot of energy on essential quality and rushed him up to get him back in the position as stalking behind the early leaders in there. And then he did make a move late in the race and tried to move up, but unfortunately didn't have enough left in the tank. Trackus is a tool that I use for horse racing. A lot of tracks use it where they're able to time the time and distance that a horse covers in a race. And in the Kentucky Derby, Essential Quality covered more ground than 17 of the 19 entrants in that field, he went 68 feet more in distance over the Churchill surface than Medina Spirit did, and still only managed to lose by a length to that horse. So, I mean, he was right up there. Yes, he finished fourth in the Kentucky Derby, but he was less than a length from the other horses. Remember, we had a pretty much across the board or a blanket finish in that race. So I think the Essential Quality was the best horse that day. Unfortunately, ran into some issues and some distance issues that didn't leave him enough in the tank here. But I like the fact that he did take off the Preakness, and he is showing up here and looking, he should be fresh and ready to go. He has the breeding being out of Tappet in here to definitely go the distance. And I think Brad Cox was quoted in the last week or two as saying that he was actually looking forward to this horse is designed to run in the for the Belmont for that mile and a half distance here. So I'm looking forward to it, and I think Essential Quality is the deserving money line favorite in here. I have a hard time betting the favorites. I mean, I do use them because I play a lot of multi-race wagers, pick fours and pick fives and so forth, so I don't want them to beat me, but I am going to try to beat him at the win window.
All right. Well, great information and great breakdown there, because that makes sense with his Tappet and his breeding. He should be a favorite in this race, 2-1. Not the worst I've seen. And there's a few other horses that we can talk about. And going just right into what you said, Rock Your World got rocked against Essential Quality. And I think, these were two of the highly, maybe most highest bet horses in the Kentucky Derby, and they kind of took each other out a little bit, which made it really interesting for the Baffert horse to win this. But Rock Your World was something I keyed in on that horse, and obviously his buyer speed looks horrible in this last race here in the Kentucky Derby 69. But can this horse get the distance?
That is my biggest question mark with him. I think he can, and what I really like here is he started his career. His first two races were on the turf that he won. He broke his maiden there and then won the Pasadena Stakes. And then he was very overlooked when he went into the Santa Anita Derby. Everybody saw this as a turf horse and so forth. And he wanted to dominate. And the horse that finished second in there was Medina Spirit, who was your pseudo Kentucky Derby winner prior to disqualification. And he made it look pretty easy. But what he did was he won that race on the front end. He went out and basically wired the field here, and they made it easy on him. It's the same. He got the same trip in the Santa Anita Derby that I expected him to get in the Kentucky Derby, but Medina Spirit ended up getting, where he got on the front end and he was challenged but never actually pushed to his limit and had enough left in reserve here. That Kentucky Derby, I can draw a line through that race. A lot of people are saying, well, once he got knocked out of the race, he just didn't really want to compete. But I think a lot of that may have to do with, and this isn't confirmed, this is my speculation, is that Rosario realized that they had no chance after the break and the issues in the gate, that he didn't ask the horse for a whole lot, and I think he left a lot in the tank. And it's more like saying that ever since the Santa Anita Derby, he really has been off. He's been training during that time. Now, I would have liked to see the trainer John Sadler send him up to Belmont to get a training session or two in over that track. Unfortunately, he's been training at Santa Anita the entire time, which is his home track. And like I said earlier, the surface at Belmont is definitely something that these horses have to be accustomed to, which is one of the reasons the Pletcher runners do so well, is they train on this track. But for him to come in the first time and run over this track, I will be interested to see how he responds to it. I like him. He's 9-2 on your morning line. I think you're going to get better odds than that. And at the win windows, once the money starts coming in on Essential Quality, I think Ron Bauer with the recency bias, winning the Preakness, and Hot Rod Charlie, who's been a factor in a number of these races recently, I think they're going to take some money. So I see it drifting up here. I think he's going to be a win bet here, and not to spoil any suspense, but I am going back to Rock Your World. I had him in the Kentucky Derby, and I think he's got a shot here at the Belmont. He'll be on the early pace here. I'd expect Essential Quality, Hot Rod Charlie not to be far off, though.
Well, that's interesting, because two horses that aren't Pletcher horses is something that you talked about. Deserving favorite and someone you're keying in on. So I find that interesting, especially because the Belmont is Pletcher's home course, as you talked about. Home track is what I should have said. Well, interesting. Who are we throwing off our tickets here that you don't think have any chance hitting the board?
Well, first, right off the bat, the 5-horse Francisco de Ina, or de Inya, I'm not sure how they pronounce it or not. He was a North American bred horse that they shipped to Japan, raced his first 3 races in Japan, won 2 of those, and then they shipped him over to Maidan for the UAE Derby. He basically didn't run a lick in that race, finished 6th. And for some reason, they thought he was Triple Crown quality, and they shipped him over here and ran him in the Preakness a few weeks back. Once again, didn't run a lick, ran seventh in that race. They again entered him here at Belmont. The Connections did buy him for $100,000 back in 2019 at the Keeneland September sale. He's on a will take charge. He should have the stamina to handle this track, but I don't think he has the speed or the heart. And until this horse shows me his ability to compete against horses of this quality, he's a scratch for me. Another one in here that I am tossing that may get some attention is the one horse, Bourbonic. He won the Wood Memorial in closing fashion and basically beat his stablemate. He was running late, and Dynamic one of Pletcher's other entries in there, had the lead, looked like he had the race won. And from out of the clouds, Bourbonic made a huge close and stole that race at 72-1, giving Pletcher an exacta that paid, I think, somewhere between $400 and $500, which you never see Pletcher horses in New York go off at such high odds. But I don't think he has the ability to win this race in here. And the third one that I'm overlooking, that I don't know, you guys know my colleague Marco D'Angelo, that I do the Pony Pundits. Marco likes this horse a little bit. I do not. The horse is the 8 horse, another Pletcher, Overtook. And I am overlooking Overtook in this one because I don't think he's faced the quality of fields that he's going to see in here. His last race was the Peter Pan, and I think the Connections are living in fantasy land that they think this horse has a shot of winning the Belmont Stakes.
All right. Well, Marco, obviously a big friend of this show, and I got to see that back and forth on the Pony Pundits. Well, I'll have to put that on as soon as you guys announce that. Now, Overtook, is Curlin a decent distance horse, or his dam got lucky?
Right. No, Overtook is definitely a bred for this distance here. Curlin won this race. I'm sorry, Curlin finished second in this race a few years back. And on the dam side, got lucky is out of AP Indy, who's bred a lot of distance horses and some Belmont winners. And AP Indy himself won this race back in 1992. So Overtook is definitely built for the distance, but I think there's better options in here at better prices. I'm overlooking Overtook, like I said. I hate to use that one again, but
so there's the argument right there: the breed versus what he's done, who he's faced, grade 3s, right? So that's interesting. I'm excited for that now. Well, good stuff. So just talking about the horses that are best bred for the 1.5 miles, besides I guess Overtook, who else is there? There's Essential Quality, Overtook. Who else is bred for this?
Right. Well, I've already touched on 2 of the Pletchers that I have in my toss category, but I am going to go to the one Pletcher that is in my use category. And the more I look at this horse and the more I basically dig into this here, the 6 horse, Known Agenda, is a Todd Pletcher who won the Florida Derby pretty convincingly and then didn't have the best Kentucky Derby. But what he did was, in the Kentucky Derby, he pretty much lost that race on post-position draw day and not on race day. He drew that dreaded 1 hole, and though they used the new 20-horse gate, so he wasn't coming out into the rail, those horses in a 20-horse field, when they break from that gate, they're all trying to get down to that rail position. So that 1 horse is basically having to deal with all of that traffic in front of him. And Known Agenda is not a historically great breaker. So even with Irata Boredom, who gets horses away from the gate pretty well, he had to deal with a ton of traffic early. But in that Kentucky Derby, he was picking up horses late and picking them off coming down the stretch. He went from 16th at the break to 9th, and he finished 11 lengths back of your eventual winners in that field. I think he has a lot of horse in here. I like the fact that Irad Ortiz is climbing back aboard. A race in New York, Irad pretty much has his choice of horses. So to climb back aboard Known Agenda when Pletcher had 3 in here, he thinks that's his best shot at winning the Belmont Stakes in here. I think Known Agenda, he's out of Curlin. He's definitely bred to go the distance in here as well. And he has a closing ability. I think his ability to make a run down the stretch here, closers historically the past few years haven't done great in the Belmont Stakes. More stalkers and pace pressers have been winning this race. But I think Known Agenda, if they do go too fast on the front end, will have the ability to make up some ground in the stretch run. And I think he should definitely be part of all your exotic tickets on Saturday. He could finish 2nd, 3rd, or 4th. And I think think he's going to float up above 10-1 with horses like Essential Quality and Rombauer and Hot Rod Charlie taking money here. He's 6-1 your morning line. I think he's a win bet, at least a small amount of pizza money or something. If he's north of 10-1, I think he has a shot to win this race here just based on Pletcher's history and this horse's ability to run it on the stretch.
Would we call him your long shot to win this race then?
Yeah, I mean, Marco thinks that Rock Your World, in my opinion, being my top choice, is a long shot. But No Agenda definitely, being more than 10-1, is a long shot in this field. Rock Your World and No Agenda both, I think, have a big shot to hit the board here. Other horses, like I said, Hot Rod Charlie, Rombauer, and Central Quality are going to attract the majority of the money at the windows. So I see these other horses floating up on the odds board.
All right. Well, we didn't really talk much about Rombauer then, the winner of the Preakness here. And, that horse was pretty surprising. I hit a small exact in the Preakness, not enough to cover. But, Rombauer, he was just kind of sneaky there. Can you talk a little bit about that horse?
Yeah, Rombauer was for trainer Mike McCarthy, who struck out on his own from the Todd Pletcher barn. And if you guys saw the Preakness, Pletcher was the first guy there to congratulate McCarthy on his first Triple Crown winning horse. The big thing about Rombauer, though, is that Flavian Pratt was aboard him for Preakness Day at Pimlico and won that race. And if you look at the past performances, Flavian Pratt's on Hot Rod Charlie, who he rode in the Kentucky Derby. Now, there may have been an arrangement between Pratt and his jockey agent and, Hot Rod Charlie's team with Doug O'Neill to ride him in any Triple Crown races, but we're not sure about that. That wasn't publicized. But I don't feel too bad for Mike McCarthy. He does pick up Hall of Fame jockey John Velasquez, who rode Medina Spirit in the Kentucky Derby, to be aboard Rombauer on Saturday here. I think Rombauer's Preakness win was impressive because he did separate himself from the field in that stretch run. But this is going to be the toughest field he faced since last fall's Breeders' Cup Juvenile, where he finished 5th. He is an improving horse, but he is going to take another step forward. He hasn't been able to beat Essential Quality yet. The 2 times they went head-to-head in the Bluegrass Stakes at Keeneland back in April, and last fall also Keeneland in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. I think he could be part of the exotics in here, but I don't have him as a top win contender. I do question his ability to get this mile-and-a-half distance.
Okay, so distance to the question here for Rombauer. Yeah, and that's the second favorite here, 3-1.
Right, 3-1. He is the second on the money on the morning line favorite.
All right, no, good stuff here. Well, so it sounds like you might do a few win play shows, but you're going to focus more on the exotics in this.
I will, yeah. I'll be looking at the exotics, and I'll have Essential Quality and Rock Your Road on top on a few of these tickets, but I'm going to box a lot in here too, because my top 4 horses in here, I went with Rock Your Road, the 7-horse, Essential Quality, second. Like I said, he's a deserving favorite in here. I can't bet him at what's going to probably be less than 2-1. So I have Essential Quality as my second choice against this field. I then used No Agenda, who like I said earlier, he's been growing on me all week, the 6-horse. And my 4th choice in here, we didn't touch on too yet, is Hot Rod Charlie. Hot Rod Charlie has been very consistent. He's been racing some big races here. Kentucky Derby, he finished 3rd. He won the Louisiana Derby in wire-to-wire fashion. He finished 3rd in the Robert Lewis Stakes at Santa Anita back in January. Medina Spirit won that race, and he finished 2nd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile at a huge price. He was more than 94-1 that day. He had just come off his maiden win, and he ran second to Essential Quality and was basically in that race the whole way. He battled Essential Quality and gave him all he could handle. So I like that. He's been developing really well here. My question again, though, on Hot Rod Charlie is, can he handle the distance? So another horse that went back and trained in California for trainer Doug O'Neill. Doug O'Neill does have what we call a betting barn, which is where the people from the barn, the trainers, the grooms, etc., everyone that works for him, they tend to bet their horses that they like. And they did bet him down on Kentucky Derby Day. I think Hot Rod Charlie's got a big shot. I think any mix of that 2, 4, 6, and 7 are going to make up your exacta and your trifecta on Belmont Day on Saturday. I think any of these horses could hit your ticket on that 4th spot on your superfecta, though, and that could blow up your ticket. All
right. Well, superfecta, that sounds amazing. 2, 4, 6, and 7, it looks like. Any other races that you want to quick throw out there?
Honestly, Kiev, I really haven't dug too deep into the Saturday card yet. I've had a pretty crazy week, and I'm still working on tomorrow's Belmont card. So I haven't done a big dig into Saturday's card yet, but Belmont always puts on their festival of racing this weekend. There are a ton of stakes races on the card, a ton of big names that we've seen, and stakes races across the country. So it should be a great day of racing, and it always pays well because there's always one or two horses in there that outrun their odds and blow up your tickets.
Oh, that's so true. And hopefully we'll pick one of those horses for our tickets. So
that's always the plan.
Where can our listeners get your great information and plays for the weekend?
Like you said, they can find me on Twitter at Sig Las Vegas, and then find my page over at Wager Talk. My daily racing reports, including Saturday's Belmont full 14 race card, just $9. You get my top selections for every race, any long shots I might like, my best bet, as well as exacta, trifecta tickets, and also pick twos daily doubles, pick threes, pick fours, and pick five tickets for those days. We've been hot at Belmont recently and looking to continue that trend. Wager Talk also put a special on me just yesterday. They can get all 30 days of my plays, all my sheets for $99. So that's basically $3 a day for a sheet that normally sells for $9. So if anybody's even looking to try me out, we're getting into the summer racing season. I got Saratoga coming, have Del Mar coming, and we're looking forward to having a big summer. Get 30 days all access for just $99.
All right. Well, make sure you guys check that out. Sig, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this huge race. Can't wait to watch it. I'll be tweeting back and forth with you.
Sounds great. Look forward to it. Appreciate you having me on the podcast.
All right. Now it's time for a little UFC Fight Night 189 or UFC on ESPN Vegas 28. Augusto Sakai versus Jargino Rosenstrike. And we have two fights to talk about here. The first fight, we're going to go with Ilir Latifi versus Tanner Boser. All right. Now, Latifi, I've been a fan of Latifi over the years. And when he fought Derek Lewis, this was his last fight. It was a long time ago, February of 2020, before the pandemic. I thought he won that fight, right? And they gave it to Lewis, and the decision was unanimous. But in my opinion, he was controlling most of that fight until the very end. He has a great ground game. That's what Latifi does. You know, great ground game. Not that great of a stand-up. He is prone to get knocked out. And now he's fighting kind of a poor man's Derek Lewis in Tanner Boser. And this guy looks like he just got out of the Rusty Spur Saloon looking to kick ass and take names while he forgot to bring his pencil, if you know what I mean. Right? So Boser's a pretty good fighter. I mean, the dude's been around a little while. He's 29 years old. Latifi's 37. 19-7-1. The thing with Boser is that he tends to KO his opponents. You know, as I said, he's a stand-up fighter type guy. He has went to decisions 7 times, 10 KOs, 2 submissions, and 7 decisions. The dude hasn't submitted anybody in a very long time. I think it's going back to literally 2015 or 2014. March 2014. So, I mean, he's going to be standing up the whole time. Latifi, he's going to be trying to get him to the ground. The good news for Boser is that he's never been submitted, right? Big guy, knows how to get up, knows how to get his back against the cage, knows how to sprawl pretty well. And basically his fights are just usually either done by submission, by KO or decision. And so, that kind of gives me an angle on a fight. So looking at the odds here, I mean, Boser, he's a favorite. And he's at like minus 190, minus 175 in this book, minus 200, kind of in that area. But like I said, he's going to go to decision or it's going to be a KO. Now, I think that if he wins, it's going to have to be by KO because that means that Latifi didn't score a lot of points on him, taking him down, trying to grapple with him, trying to wrestle him, because that's what Latifi's going to do. If Latifi can't take advantage of him, I think Latifi does get knocked out. I know that Derrick Henry did go to decision, but I think that was more of an anomaly right there. So the price for Boser to win by KO is about plus 210. 2-1. I kind of like that. But at the same time, when I first kind of delved into this fight, I was trying to find a reason to back Latifi. The reason I kind of want to back Latifi is I just think that he can keep Boser on the ground, like he did with Derek Lewis, right? Obviously, Derek Lewis better than Boser, but this is why I think Latifi can win this fight. See, Latifi's last 3 fights he lost. Derek Lewis, decision. He got KO'd by Volkan Oezdemir, and Corey Anderson, a very good fighter, went to decision. Before that, he beat OSP, Ovin St. Pro, Tyson Pedro, some of his other wins, Sean O'Connell. Not huge names, but he's been around for a while, right? And, Boser, just a tier 2/tier 3 brawler. His last fights, he lost to Arlovsky in a decision. Arlovsky's a really good fighter. And then he TKO'd Pessoa, Rafael, and Felipe Lins. Okay, he did lose to Cyril Gain, and that's fine. Gain, obviously, one of the top contenders in the heavyweight division now. And a couple other wins. Middle of the road fighter. But like I said, if he's going to win this fight, it's going to have to be by KO. So I like this, but I think that Latifi can win in decision. I don't think Latifi's going to submit this guy. And Latifi hasn't knocked anyone out in a long time. But you can get Latifi for decision at plus 350. So this is one of those 2 bet type fights that you can take both fighters in 2 different angles. Now, I'm going to do a unit apiece. And obviously, I'm sacrificing 2 units on it. But my real goal is Latifi to win this thing in decision at the plus 350, because you're actually getting plus 250 minus that unit. So we're going to throw a unit on here, Latifi here. And for decision, plus 350, that he wins by points or decision, right? Unanimous. It doesn't have to be unanimous split, just whatever. And we're going to bet Boser by KO, TKO, DQ at plus 210.
Last week, fucked around and got a triple-double.
All right, the next fight, we're going to go right to the main event here. And I looked hard at this fight. Trying to find an angle. Augusto Sakai versus Jorginho Rosenstruck. And I like Jorginho. I didn't like him against Cyril Gain. I did lose on that one. He actually went the distance. I'm pissed that I didn't take that shot. It was nice plus money. But then it's just stuck right out to me. Sometimes you're like, duh, why don't I just do this? Well, let's just look at Sakai here. I like Sakai, right? And I saw him fight Alistair Overeem. And I was on Overeem, and I thought I was losing this fight until Overeem finally rolled him a couple times on the ground and then was able to take advantage of him with some elbows, right? Just mistakes by Sakai. I think Sakai was winning that fight, really, But either way, Sakai's a really good fighter. He's getting better and better. He's only 30 years old, 6'4", 260 pounds. Before that fight, he was 15-1-1, right? Really good fighter. And, he was in the Bellator for a long time. Fantastic record, only 1 loss in the Bellator. He had a draw with somebody. Did Dana White's Contender Series, did really well there, won his fight, and then, just kind of moved his way up, and he beat guys like Arlovsky, really good fighters. And looking at Jorginho, I've always liked Jorginho. He was always kind of like that top 6, top 7 heavyweight contender, but he lost 2 of his last 3. Of course, one of them is Ngannou. It's fine, and Ngannou's very good. Then he beats Junior Dos Santos in the second round, pretty late in the second round, 3 minutes and 47 seconds. And then he, just kind of dances around with Gain. And Gain's bigger than him. Gain's a beast. He was a little intimidated. He didn't want to expose himself, and I'm kind of wondering if that's what he's doing now. He doesn't want to get KO'd since that knockout by Ngannou. He's been a little bit more careful about his jaw. Right, a lot of Jorginho's older fights were over mostly more quickly, I would say. But looking at the spread here, or the odds, sorry, the Augusto is close to even money. I mean, he's plus 100, minus 104 in this book. Bovada plus 105, William Hill plus 100, Pinnacle plus 103. And you got Jorginho around the minus 120, minus 115 area. So they think it's going to be pretty equal. I can't trust Jorginho here completely. I'm going to lean Jorginho here, but here's what I like more. I like over 2.5 rounds. All right, and you're getting that at minus 110 here. I think Jorginho's just knowledgeable and knows that he's got 5 rounds here. It's going to be kind of like how he did Gain. Now, you can never engage with Gain because he was just going to be overpowered. Sakai is a fast fighter, but the thing about Sakai, he doesn't have a lot of power behind his punches, in my opinion anyway. I mean, Sakai, 15-2-1, 11 KOs, 0 submissions. He doesn't submit anybody. He's only been KO'd once, and like I said, that was a long time ago. I'm sorry, before Overeem's fight, and that was late in the 5th round. So before that, it was a long time ago when he was KO'd. He was his last loss was 2017, where it was a decision in the Bellator. So, in my opinion, Jorginho's going to dance with this guy for a while, right? And Sakai's going to throw some blows, but his last 3 wins, 2 of them were by decision. And then he beat Marcin Tibura, who was actually fighting that night also, by KO, right, in the first round. So his other fights, 3 rounds, 4 minutes and 3 seconds it took against Chase Sherman. Marcos Conrado, it took him 2 rounds, 3 minutes and 9 seconds in it. All we got to go is 2 rounds, 2 minutes and 30 seconds here. I think Jorginho's going to allow that. I like the over because it's even money. We're going to take the over, minus 110 here, and we're going to give it 2 stars. All right, my friends, that's all the time we have today. But if you have any questions about this podcast or any of the fights coming up, please feel free to tweet us at the Odds Breakers. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the Belmont Stakes. Enjoy the fights. And go get some winners.